What? Does it sound weird?
Kind of sounds weird. Say like the Pledge of Allegiance for a little bit.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. You sound great. Hey, everybody. It's two Dynamite dudes with attitude. I am here with my degenerate brother, none other than Marcus DeAngelo. Wow, look at that face. That's pure degeneracy. You know he was up to debaucherous things growing up as a young adolescent till now.
Doing hideous things as a chubby young gentleman up in rural Pennsylvania.
Yes. Oh man, so little to do, so much food to eat.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of degeneracy up that way. A lot of degeneracy on AEW Dynamite, Dom. Some things suitably good, some things horribly bad.
Ooh.
So yeah, a lot to talk about. Let's dive right in.
Let's just get into it. Yeah. Did you want to give your overall thoughts first, or do you want to just break it down as we go through match by match kind of and segment by segment a little bit?
I think we should start doing like a Dave Meltzer star situation, Dom. You know, like out of 5 stars. And I would give this one a 1.5 for
the show overall.
Yeah, it was not the best AEW Dynamite I've seen.
Wow. Well, like now, it's definitely not the best AEW Dynamite I've seen, and it's definitely not one of my favorite episodes. I wouldn't give it. I mean, I wouldn't give it 1.5 stars. I would give it like maybe like 3 or maybe like 2.5. No, I wouldn't even go that low. I'd give it about 3 stars, I would say.
I feel perfectly justified with 1.5 stars. It was, man, a lot of bad things happened.
Okay, well, how do you want to break it down then? Because you seem to have a lot of thoughts about it. So, do you want to do it?
Yeah, you've got the results in front of you, so let's just go segment by segment, and we'll talk it out.
Okay, and this is the first here on Two Dynamite Dudes because I'm going through the results that I wrote. I did the live coverage up on WrestleZone.com, and over 3,000 words of covering AEW Dynamite. It's I tell you what, it's a very different animal.
Let's punish the listener with all of those words. My goodness,
it's a very different animal. Trying to assess and give my actual like thoughts and like take the whole show in as you're doing live coverage. It's really different. So I'm interested to see what you have to say about the show and kind of get your kind of vibe from it overall. Also, I want you to do me a favor this week because I've noticed listening back to the shows, I keep saying in regards to a lot. So I want you to do a count and make sure you're keeping me honest in that regard. Okay? Oh, jeez. See that? Wow.
Oh, my God.
Wow. I did not even mean to do that. No joke.
This is gonna be a rough show. And honestly, Dom, I've been around you for long enough, and I've heard you say that particular phrase enough times that it's white noise. So I'm probably gonna miss most of them.
Okay. Well, we'll figure it out. All right. So yes, I covered it. JR started off the show by noting that there were select fans in attendance. What do you feel about having fans in the audience at Daly's Place? They were close together. They were all bunched up. How do you feel about it? Are you all right with it? Are you kind of weird with it? Your thoughts?
I'm all right with it with a caveat, and that caveat is that these fans, I assume, are paying top dollar in order to be there at a show where there's basically nobody but them and the wrestlers.
Now, I don't think they're paying top dollar. I think they're like it's through relationships and certain things like that. I don't believe they're like paying actual for the seating. I don't hold me to that, but that's what I believe.
That being the case, I'm assuming that all the regulations and the rules that apply to the talent are also applying to the audience. So if that's the case, fair enough. Tony Khan's got a lot of money, and AEW has now established a track record of handling the situation well. Has one person in AEW tested positive for coronavirus?
I believe. I don't know if it was confirmed or not. I know QT Marshall was quarantined for 2 weeks because I don't know if he got tested. I think they said that he might have had it because he was with DDP and DDP's family got it. DDP was tested, and his test came back negative, although he believes he seriously had it because a lot of his family members tested, and I think they got it tested positive for it. So I think QT Marshall was mixed up into that in some form or fashion, and he was quarantined for a couple weeks. Otherwise, I don't think there was any super confirmed cases with AEW, but he was the only one.
In any case, AEW's done a better job of managing the situation than WWE at least initially was doing. So as long as they're continuing to establish those guidelines, even for the audience, then I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I just thought that was interesting. That was one of the first things we saw. And that, yeah, so there. Another thing we never really addressed, Excalibur not being there. This is the third week going on. They did 2 tapings last week, or 2 weeks ago, when you heard about what happened with Excalibur, have you? You know?
I have.
Okay.
Yes.
So give me your thoughts on that. What do you feel about all that, and how they're handling it? What do you think? How should they resolve this whole issue, or what's your stance on that?
Well, so Eric Bischoff's famous phrase on 83 weeks is context is king, and I think some context needs to be lended to the situation. It's not as though and by the way, I'm not sticking up for Excalibur and what he did by any means, but it's not as though he just got into that ring all those years ago and said those things off the cuff. Like, he had established with the talent beforehand that he was speaking about that was how it was going to go. Now, all that being said, that does not make it right at all. Anybody could come up to me and tell me, hey, you can call me whatever you want. That doesn't mean that I'm going to do it. And to do it for a wrestling storyline, I think is beyond absurd and ridiculous and punishable. And let's face it, Dominic, I mean, is the booth more exciting with Taz, Tony Schiavone, and JR, or Schiavone, JR, and Excalibur? I don't think it's even close. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they can keep Excalibur off TV. Go ahead and give him a job. I'm sure he can lend a hand backstage in some capacity. But I wouldn't want him on my TV following what he did. Even though, like I said, I think we all need to establish context before we crucify the guy. That being said, I don't think he has a place on AEW television if I had anything to do with it. What are your thoughts?
So, I think, it was obviously stupid. The Human Tornado was the target of the promo, and back then, and PWG. So if you're not aware of what happened, 17 years ago, Excalibur was in an angle with Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens, and another individual too, I believe. But an angle involving Human Tornado, African-American wrestler. And apparently, Human Tornado implored them to use racial slurs. He wanted them to use racial slurs in the promo. And Kevin Steen did not really want to do it. I think even Excalibur was pretty skeptical and was really apprehensive about it. But he wanted Human Tornado's like, you can do it. Go ahead. And so they ended up using the N-word in the promo. Excalibur did. And so this is 17 years ago, video resurfaced of it. And boom, that's kind of what happened. So AEW did not suspend Excalibur. Excalibur was off tapings 2 weeks ago. And then it ended up, some of the word going around is that Excalibur willingly removed himself from the booth because he didn't want attention on him after all this folded out. So he was like, I'm going to sit this one out. He was in Jacksonville at the time. And I think it was Meltzer that reported that he even flew in for these recent tapings that just went down this past week for Wednesday. So he was there. And I even thought he was going to be in the booth. Even when I was typing my recap beforehand, I put Excalibur as the third commentator, not Taz, because I thought he was going to be there. But when I did, I changed it. Anyways, so I think it was really dumb of him to say and actually do. Just a bad angle. You don't want to do that stuff at all. So as far as it resurfacing and happening, even if Excalibur removed himself from the situation from commentary this past 2 weeks, if I was AEW, I would have done that anyways. As far as how it goes with him now, I think it's water long under the bridge, and I feel you can rightfully bring him back. Obviously, a dumb thing to do, really stupid, and but like you just said, context is king, and it's 17 years ago, and it was something that was already known. It just happened to resurface. So, and even Human Tornado went in his defense and Kevin Steen's defense on social media and everything like that. So, I mean, you think about all that stuff. I personally, as a trio, I think Excalibur brings his own unique take to it. Brings a lot of cool different aspects that normally you don't hear from guys like Tony Schiavone and JR. So he adds that nice little mix to it. Obviously, I love Taz. Taz is one of my favorite in-ring performers and commentators that there ever has been. And so and Tony's the voice of our childhood. So you have that with JR. It's like a match made in heaven for us personally. So I do like that. But I also think Excalibur does bring his own stuff to the table. As far as how I would handle that, I'm not too sure. Because I do think Excalibur does bring value to the commentary team and adds a neat little chemistry that we're not used to seeing between a guy like JR with Tony, and you can tell that they like being with Excalibur too. So it's a situation that can remain fluid, and maybe you can just kind of mix it up here and there. Taz is in his own gig right now with Team Taz, so with Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. So it's its own kind of thing. So
yeah. I think there's a lot of moving pieces, and just one final thing, and then we can move on to the actual program.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you're a wrestler, if you're a talent anywhere, and somebody is asking you to use a racial slur or to act homophobic or anti-religion or whatever the thing should be, it's never a good idea. If Excalibur would have sat and thought logically, how do you bounce back as a character in that territory after saying something like that? How do you ever go back and become a babyface again? So that would be like saying having an angle where he was sexually assaulting people. You know what I mean? It's you cannot bounce back.
Yeah, there's nothing positive.
You can't bounce back from it. You'll never go back to being a babyface. Everybody in the territory, it's go home heat. It's pointless. It's use your heads. I'm sure there's many, many wrestlers watching the program that we're doing right now, Dom. So, guys, use your heads and think about your future in the career before you do any stupid angles.
You always want to protect yourself in the business, no matter what, whether it's, from a physical standpoint or from an angle standpoint. I always feel like even if you're making a crap ton of bank for it, it's not worth it in the long run, I don't believe. It really isn't. To put yourself and to compromise maybe what your character is. I even think the perfect example I feel is like Drake Maverick, them having him piss himself on camera and stuff like that. You don't want to do that to your character. That's you. That is your brand. You're marketed as that. So you going forward with that, you're always going to be labeled with that. That's always going to be a memory in people's minds. And it's just boom. There's got to be a certain line that you draw as a persona and a talent that you want to protect your brand. You want to protect your attitude and what you convey to your audience. And being a wrestler, you want to convey outlaw. That's the key word I always use when you want to be a wrestler, because that's what makes it so cool. Is you don't listen to authority. You don't do anything. You do your own thing. That's what you want to convey to an audience a lot of the time. So having leverage and just drawing a line in the sand is important. So, but yeah, let's move on because we got a lot to talk about. We didn't cover that in the past couple of weeks, and I figured.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up, and I think it's important for us to discuss something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's hammer on, Dom.
All right. So opening match, Young Bucks versus Dark Order. They started off right away, with this tag team appreciation night with the hottest tag team, or the biggest tag team, arguably, in AEW. So what'd you think of this opening match, Mark?
I thought, lately I've been down on the Young Bucks, but I thought this was probably the highlight of the show. I thought it was well done on both sides. I think Evil Uno and old Robin over there, Stu Grayson. I think that they've really established a chemistry in the ring They've kind of got their timing down. I am fed up with the spot where Evil Uno catches somebody's leg and hands it to the ref, and the ref holds it. We get it.
Yeah, I don't like that.
You're hilarious. That's enough. So I wish they would stop that crap. But no, they've really established a rhythm. So yeah, this match, I really don't have anything too bad to say about it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a good match. I thought it was a really, really good opener. And yeah, I feel like aside from that, what you mentioned, I feel the double teams and the chemistry that Stu Grayson and Evil Uno show with one another, it's awesome. Like they're series of double team moves where they kind of like launch an opponent and they suplex them, and then they did the flips, the fatality, I think it's called, or something like that. I thought really cool spots that they did.
Up until recently, I was honestly questioning, like, why is Evil Uno in AEW? What does he offer? What does he have? And over the past few weeks, I've actually started to see it. I'm like, oh, he is a good hand. Like he's a larger body, but he's good with his body. He knows how to use his size and his frame. He's not an athletic looking dude, but he can do some athletic things. Kind of like a Matt Bourne type of wrestler. Yeah. Where it's like a guy who does not look like an athlete, but he's athletic. And so that kind of, I was like, okay, I'm starting to get the signing. I just hope we can see a little bit more depth. And I would like to see him without the stupid mask on anymore. Hammer on though.
Would you? You'd think he should go without the mask?
I'm just not a fan of the mask on him. I think it's a luchador tradition, largely, and I would like to see it stay with the luchadors, at least in my opinion.
Okay, I kind of disagree, but that's all right. All right. Let's see. So, let's go with MJF's address. That was next. Yeah, I really want to get your thoughts on this. Overall, MJF is obviously an amazing promo. Arguably, probably the best, maybe in not MLW, in AEW.
Either him or Taz.
Yeah. So, what'd you think of this segment and how it was handled, and Moxley's interference, all that stuff?
So I like it, but with, again, a caveat. I like it with the hope that it's going to stop after his feud with Moxley is over, or after he gets his match, because I think it's good, and it's like he's on the campaign trail to try to get the title. If this is becoming a regular part of his character, where he's doing like addressing the audience as almost like a candidate, I'm not crazy about it. I hope it's just a lead up to his, probably, I guess, up to this point, what could be considered the biggest match of his career. So I would like to see it stop after that. But no, I thought it was a good segment. The end of it, he did give it away a little bit, as far as like saying, go up into the bomb. He always comes out of the bomb and he sends all of his crew away. It's like, gee, I wonder what's going to happen now. Like, so of course Moxley has a workaround. And I did see, Dominic, by the way, that the gentleman who helps run the Major Wrestling Figure podcast, Smart Mark Sterling, is now acting as MJF's attorney on Twitter. And he's trying to ban the paradigm shift, or get people to sign a petition to ban.
Oh, is that change.org that I saw? That link?
Yes, I believe that's it. And so yes, that's Smart Mark Sterling. So I'm hoping, because I like Smart Mark Sterling just from listening to the podcast, I'm hoping that this means that he's going to have like a managerial type role in AEW in the near future. I mean, he's a wrestler too, so he could get it and work as well. But it's good to have a manager who can also take bumps.
Yeah, I saw Taz sign that petition,
and which is right on. Which is another thing that makes me love Taz. It's right on character. Like he's staying on character. He hates John Moxley, and he sees a petition coming out that could give his talent an edge over John Moxley. He's like, I'm signing that. So no, I love that Taz did that.
Yeah. Well, I wanted, the thing that I was very interested in is kind of like MJF breaking the fourth wall in a roundabout way with this promo, because he said in it that, like, hey Mox, I'm gonna lay down on the mat for you because you have all your talent just looking up at the lights, so to speak. Like saying that they lay down for him or whatever like that. Did you feel that was too much of jumping out of the so-called box of the universe that they're making, or is that not too big of a deal? Or how'd you take it?
I didn't really catch that mood from it, and I'm guessing that most of the audience didn't either. That being said, now that I'm hearing you say it back, I'm like, that is kind of, I'm not crazy about that. Obviously, we all know that the business is worked, but we all watch under the pretense that it's not worked. That would be like us watching The Dark Knight, which, by the way, MJF quoted during that portion of his segment, which
Oh, did he?
very, very overused Joker quote where he says, "You're like a dog
Oh,
chasing a
yeah,
car."
yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you caught it, I was like, "Ugh," it made me cringe a little bit. But he did come out of it pretty well when he was saying that the car was the belt, and he doesn't know what to do with it, doesn't belong with him, etc. But in any case, in my opinion, like if we were watching The Dark Knight and all of a sudden, like Batman, he's like gives one of those like to the audience, like breaks
Yeah.
the fourth audience, like this guy, you know what I mean? It would take us straight out of the movie. And that is how I feel about wrestling. I don't want to. I know it's a work. I don't want you to slapping me in the face with it. Don't force me to think about it. Let me suspend my disbelief for 2 hours while I watch Dynamite and just think that these guys actually hate each other and want to punch each other, and it's all devastating. So yeah, I don't like that. I think that kayfabe should be priority in AEW because it's not a priority in WWE, and we want to be different than WWE.
Yeah, and WWE is embarrassed almost to have that. Like they would be like, "Well, we don't want to insult our audience's intelligence." Well, if that's the case, act freaking kayfabe then, because that's not insulting our intelligence by throwing it in our face that okay, what we're watching is not really real, or these two people, or how many people don't hate each other. You know, with so and MJF is almost the ultimate. Like if you had to look at somebody in wrestling right now as the ultimate, pinnacle of kayfabe, probably MJF, right?
Yeah, he is. He is, and he has been. So, it's obviously every once in a while, maybe you've got a one-liner or something to say that's a little bit too, delicious to let go. So I'm guessing that's probably what happened here. It was like he came up with this. And he was like, I gotta say it. It's good. So I get it. I just hope it's not a standard. Just like I hope that this State of the Union situation or campaign trail situation is not the standard with MJF moving forward.
Well, it could burn out. I think it. Yeah, I'm sure. Just like Jericho does, I'm sure MJF is smart enough where like it's just crazy because he's like so young and everything like that. But he's really ahead of the game in a lot of ways. But I feel like he'll be on the ball with kind of like what Jericho is, where he's like, okay, this certain thing has a certain amount of shelf life, and then at that point, it's over and done with. Like Jericho writes something away that's really popular, whatever it may be, and moves on to the next thing. I'm sure MJF's in the same kind of vibe with that.
So first two segments, Dom, are pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, no. Shoot, who do you think's gonna win at All Out? Who would you want to see MJF pull it out? Do you want to? Who do you think's gonna win? Who do you want to win?
Just based on all that they're doing for MJF and pushing him toward, I would say that MJF is going to win, and that's who I want to see win. I think that he should, and I think that Jon Moxley does not need the title to get over, whereas putting the title on MJF could help get him to that next level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd be fine either way, honestly. I feel like either way that they go with. But you immediately create a new top talent by putting the belt on MJF, so there's a little bit of incentive there for sure,
Yep.
So.
He's a top guy already, or he should be considered a top guy already. So putting the belt on, it's only, maybe he'll be one of the biggest heels in pro wrestling right now. So yeah, and he's got enough fanfare and enough people know him and follow him on Twitter, and there's enough marketing supporting him that you can justify putting a belt on a guy like that and saying like, this guy that you keep seeing on TV and that we're making a figure of, and you see him all over Twitter, he's our champion now.
And there's always the aspect. I mean, Cody knows this better than anybody. Is there's the thrill of the chase, where you have, the heel with the title. So who do you want? If you establish several people, you can have chase after MJF as this defending champion, or like this cowardly champion. You go around the gauntlet of new stars and creating new stars to go after this belt here, and you establish MJF further and further and further as the champion for a long time. It's a good setup.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Next up, what did we have? Overall, what did you think of the two, the tag teams mentioning their favorite tag teams throughout the evening? Did you like that?
I liked it. There was how many instances of that? It felt like there was only 2.
There was 3. So Kenny Omega, Hangman, Private Party, Butcher, and the Blade. First time I ever heard Butcher and Blade talk was that segment. So.
Which is a shame because I think they probably have a lot to contribute. I thought it was fine. I didn't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was kind of a neat little aspect to have on it. Neat they brought in the Road Warriors in the mix. I'd like to see them bring in they said the Private Party said the Hardy Boys and stuff like that. I think they could have really maybe even done a little bit more with it. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Next up, the TNT Championship match: Scorpio Sky versus Cody Rhodes. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good match. Again, it felt like all of the good stuff on the show was kind of front end loaded, and then it just slowly started to go off the rails. But no, I mean, good match. I mean, 2 very good workers. I think that it felt like the match got played up to be like such a barn burner of a match because you've got such great workers that it sort of felt like the expectation was Shawn and Brett at WrestleMania 12, and the result was a good match for national television. So it's the expectation didn't quite meet the hype, but I don't have I almost never have anything bad to say about Cody's matches unless he's working against a talent that's just not ready to be in there with him, which clearly Scorpio Sky, has all the tools.
Yeah.
And by the way, I like how I feel about Brodie Lee. So at the end, I like the setup for a feud between Brodie and Cody, and I love the old school. We both have a belt. Excuse me. I love the old school. We both have a belt angle, which shades of Razor and Shawn.
Yeah, that's true. I made the joke that he's like George Costanza pulling out the eclair out of the trash,
I don't know where you're going with that, but I like
it. He finds the disposed of belt and he's like, oh, hey.
Which, by the way, if you had a belt that you wore on national television, would any normal human just be like, well, I got a new belt, so right in the trash.
Screw this one.
Yeah. So that would never happen. But no, that is a hilarious comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, honestly, I would like to see a payoff similar to Razor and Shawn. Put it up and let's have the first ladder match in AEW history.
That's not the first ladder match. They had one at Double or Nothing. No, had the Double or Nothing one. Brian Cage won that.
Damn it. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, the second one, and maybe a better one.
Hey, and with these ladder matches, I hate these multiple man ladder matches. Just across the board, I feel it should be just 2 people. Boom.
Well, you get 2 people who can work like Shawn and Razor, like Triple H and The Rock. You get 2 people who know how to work in a ladder match, and man, they can put on quite a show. You get too many people in there, and it can be a real cluster.
It's a clusterfuck. Yeah.
Or it can be great, as we saw with the Dudley Boys and the Hardys and Edge and Christian back in the day. So there's an argument to be made both ways. It's really just about execution.
Yeah. What's your ceiling with Scorpio Sky overall? You think he could be a future world champ? You think from what you saw of him this week? I agree with you though. This match, I was expecting it to tear the house down, and I was excited for it. I was really excited for it. And that's that's why I wanted your perspective on this too, because like I said, I was doing the coverage, so I was wondering if that hindered my viewpoint on how to assess the show essentially. But I'm with you. I feel like the match itself was good, but it wasn't like holy shit, that's something boom, I got to mark this one down. I got to bookmark this for later on. You know what I mean? Obviously both are talented. I love both the guys, but it wasn't something that whoa, blew my hair back, my hypothetical hair back.
I think Scorpio Sky needs some more mic time to help him get over a little bit. Obviously, he's got all the physical tools. So I mean, really, it depends on him. If he's good on the mic and he can show some fire, I think the Sky, if you'll to coin a phrase, maybe the Sky. Yeah, so I think that the sky's the limit for Scorpio Sky. And by the way, I mean, Kazarian was sitting in the crowd by himself during a tag match, so I don't know what that means. But
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, and they made a note of that. So
he's by himself. Scorpio Sky's by himself. So maybe it's a breakup, which honestly might not be the worst thing in the world for either of these guys' careers. Let's see what they can do as individuals.
Dude, I want to see what Kaz does as like a singles competitor nowadays. I think he's got a great look. He's trained by Killer Kowalski, which is such a cool aspect to have like as a wrestler and stuff like that. It's just really neat stuff that you can really build upon, and like you can make him somebody like you can elevate Kaz for sure. You know,
buckets of potential. It's about execution. So I really hope that AEW can tighten it up.
I agree with you, man. Okay, next up we had the tag team titles match: Jurassic Express, Kenny Omega, and Hangman.
All right, we started going off the rails. This is where it began. Dom, I hate Luchasaurus. Hate him. I hate him. I'm sure he's a fantastic guy in real life. I just like it. I don't. He's too damn green, I think, to be in the ring. Like he's a big galoot, and he understands how to wrestle, and he understands like how to make things look cool and athleticism. I think he's got all that, but there's a very simple concept in wrestling that's worked for decades, and that concept is if you are the biggest guy in the ring, you don't need to do anything other than get heat on the smaller guys in the ring, right? But like all the flippy stuff, we get it. You can do those things. That doesn't mean that you should do those things. So it's cool that he can, but so can half the roster now. So now you're not original. You're just a big guy who can do it. I want to see him as like a big, tough, scary, hard to chop down guy. That can and should be his role, and I don't think it's ever going to happen. Marco's stunt is really getting on my nerves, which, by the way, if it's by design, for him to be like this annoying little guy who like you want to see get wiped out, which we got to see, by the way, Kenny Omega hit him with a pretty nasty looking snapdragon on the outside.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, like got a real pop out of me when that happened. But so if that's a design to have him be like this annoying little guy who like hides behind a guy like Luchasaurus, I'm behind it. But like right now, it's like that's not what's happening, and it drives me crazy, man.
It's hard because Luchasaurus, it's in his name, Lucha, so it's like you do that kind of stuff. That's kind of part of his brand and identity and stuff like that. I feel he's hindered by not having a live audience in the crowd because a lot of that times, like Luchasaurus, like when Dynamite first started, man, like. He was the guy that like was really popping, like getting the crowd into it, everything like that. And like, and I don't even know if it was necessarily Dynamite, but those just the pay-per-views like Double or Nothing and different things like that. He was over. And now it's just kind of seemed, obviously Jungle Boy, I think is the big star of the trio of them. But Luchasaurus really carved his niche there. And now it is tough because, I feel like he's kind of just floating there where it's not like he does this stuff, but so does everybody else. And he's a bigger dude. He doesn't get time to talk. I think he just overall, like the persona or everything just kind of needs some sort of major shift in a way. And
well, it's like you see it, and it's like so. When I first saw Luchasaurus and he came out, I'm like, look at the size of this guy, like it's awesome, And he's got this crazy look. He's very muscular. So you see him, and you're like, hey, awesome. Where's this going? And then we saw where it was going, and then it has stayed exactly there. So where does Luchasaurus go? How does he wind up? Like right now, he's like Wrath in WCW. Right, where it's like he comes out and he has his debut and he's got the crazy looking bald guy with him and he's like got crazy music. He looks straight out of Mortal Kombat. He comes down to the ring and you're like, look at it, it's Adam Bomb and he looks tremendous and let's see what he can do. And then he showed us what he could do in that first match and then that's all he did forever. Right, so it's like we've got to see what else he's got. So I don't know. Maybe it's more mic time that he needs. Maybe it's like getting away from Jurassic Express. Like, let's branch him out on his own, make him a single, make him a little more serious and intimidating. I don't know what the answer is, but as of right now, not a fan of Luchasaurus.
They got to make a shift. I kind of agree with you, and I think it does start with maybe his in-ring style and being more of a big man fighter, kind of heater dude. Instead, I think that's where it starts. See what happens after that, and see if he can catch some sort of traction. But yeah, I mean, I think he needs some sort of change. I agree with you.
So Kevin Nash, I'm a huge Kevin Nash mark, and so Kevin Nash tells this great story about how when he first started in wrestling, he was like, he used to be a basketball player, and so he was like leapfrogging people, and he was doing like the drop down, and I think it was Scott Hall pulled him aside, and he was like, never avoid contact with somebody. He was like, theoretically, if this is a shoot and somebody runs into you, it should be like running into a brick wall. Why would you ever avoid contact with somebody? And so it sort of clicked with Kevin Nash, and for the rest of his career, he worked like a big man who you've got to chop down. And that's something that I think needs to be established in these talent, where it's like, make people chop you down. Tell a story in the ring. You're not telling anybody a story by showing like, oh, he's big and he can do a flip. Or like, oh, wow, look at how high he can get his leg to kick the guy directly in the face. I don't care about that stuff. Let's see a story and let's see some depth.
Yeah. It's some versatility, like a little bit of mix up. Like we get all the high flying from all the other guys. Let's see something different.
Yep.
Backstage, we got the Santana and Ortiz continuing their feud with the best friends. They dump their gear out, pour bleach all over it. How do you feel about Ortiz and Santana and this whole thing going on with them overall?
That was a bright spot in the second half of the program. I like it's a very unique thing to do, and it's also a thing that wrestlers do backstage is mess with each other's gear. And it's sort of like it's how they rib each other, but it can also be a sign of disrespect to someone. So I like kind of the crossover between like what really happens in locker rooms and like a storyline where it's like they've got all their gear and they completely. How mad would you be, Dom, if you had all your stuff in a bag and somebody threw it in the shower and bleached it? Like I would be furious. So seeing that, it's like awesome. All right, we're getting some depth out of those guys. I kind of want them to get the hell away from Chris Jericho and do their own thing. And I think that could really help them as a tag team.
Eddie Kingston, man. Get him with Eddie Kingston.
Yep. I'd love to see it. He fits in perfectly with them and what they're all about. Let's get the guy with the crazy hair to stop making stupid faces all the time, and you might have something.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I just like what they're doing. I honestly, it's like them, and it's Butcher and the Blade, my top two favorite tag teams, I think, in AEW right now. They're just so they need to be elevated to that level of those other guys because they deserve it. I think they deserve to be.
I mean, my favorite tag team is the Revival, but we'll get to that soon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's coming up here. Biggest segment. Actually, right now it's coming up. Tag team appreciation.
That might be next. Yeah, that was a good segment. Again, another bright spot there in the second half of the program, where it's cool. You get the nostalgia feeling with everybody in the ring and all that stuff. The Young Bucks, like, they're heels, dude. The Young Bucks are heels, and they can make it work. Like, so he was. It kind of cracked me up because Matt was like on the mic. And he was saying like, yeah, so like it started with you guys, and then we got to the Rockers, and then we got to us. Like he had that moment, and I was like, you are such a dickhead. So like, I think that they would make tremendous heels, and I hope that that's the route that they take. Obviously, it's not because FTR wound up turning into heels by the end of it, which by the way was tremendous, seeing them attack two old guys who they were like showing so much respect to. It's great. That's a great heel thing. The whole like playing possum thing, tremendous. Love it. So I'd like to see that kind of thing continue. And by the way, Tully Blanchard, he was like, if that guy was in your face yelling at you, it would be a little bit intimidating just because he shows so much confidence.
Yeah, no, Tully was the star of the whole segment. It's just like everybody's like, like praising each other, patting one another on the back, and he's like, just shut up. All right.
It was
Nobody's won anything.
And he again, yeah, he made a great point. Neither of those tag teams have won a belt, and they're kind of unanimously being praised as the two best in AEW. It's like, if you guys are the best, why are neither of you champions? So he raised a valid point. So yeah, I like it. I like where they're going with it. The Young Bucks need to put over FTR when the time comes. That's my opinion, and I'm an FTR fan, so maybe that's got something to do with it. But like, the Young Bucks are over in their own organization, obviously. So let's really push FTR to the next level by putting them.
That's been to their detriment too, because everybody's been saying like, hey, you gotta put the Young Bucks at the top, and they haven't done that to themselves. Like, they've been kind of more so, helping other teams out and stuff like that in a lot of ways too. So it's like, obviously they didn't win the tag titles and different things like that starting off. So it's just like they didn't do that. So I mean, but I'm with you. I feel like at this point, those are being established as the top two. A primary focus on AEW Dynamite is FTR and the Young Bucks. So it's like, you have those guys, mix it up. You kind of don't need the belts at this point. You'll need them eventually. And well, I mean, it looks like we might be getting that actually right off the bat, because at All Out, I'm sure it could be a three-way between Hangman, Omega, and those two teams. So,
yep. And I like that they're nodding and showing respect to some of the talent from the past, which we got to see also with Lance Archer and Jake the Snake, which I believe was the next segment. Lance Archer is doing, Jake is doing his usual, great promo, and Lance Archer is back there beating up on people. And then Lance Archer tore his fucking shirt off. And I'm like, yo, what the fuck, bro? Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, he tore his shirt off, and he turned around, and he's like, so many questions came to my mind. It's like, what? Like, first of all, why not like a sign? Second of all, like, why? Who put it on? Did Lance Archer like make
Lance
Jake
Archer
take his shirt off and then? Huh?
I bet this is my hypothetical I've created in my head. This is the story I made in my head. Just right now, I was like, why is it written on his back? This is my story I just came up with. All right. Lance Archer's just constantly pissed off. All right. Constantly pissed. Like, you cannot fucking satisfy this man. All right. He wants to throw short people all around, throw people in trash cans, up in tiles, everything. He's just mad, just furious. All right.
And by the way, before you continue, everybody who he attacks looks like they're 5'4", and he's just like slinging them across the room.
Get the fuck out of here.
But go ahead.
So he's just fuming, okay? He's like a caged lion, like just roaming around wherever. Plus, you got COVID, the pandemic happening. He's fucking pissed, all right? So he's got nothing to settle him down. He comes in. Jake's hanging out, all right? Jake's a nut job, okay? Jake's like, he's evil, diabolical. He's like always up to some shit, but Jake's passed out, all right? Jake is like just zonked out. He's out of it, okay? Lance comes barging in. He wants something done. He's just like, fuck, man, what the fuck am I going to do? He just he happens to have a Sharpie. Boom. Just writes on Jake's back, who's laying there. Picks him up, puts on the shirt. Jake doesn't even notice. Because, you don't look at your back half the time. So he puts on the shirt. Jake's cutting this promo, and he's like, hey. He grabs a hold of Jake. Boom, rips the shirt off, turns him around. There you go.
It was so bad, Dominic. And I don't care. I don't care what backstory you give to it. Like, the fact is that they didn't give the audience any backstory. So most of us are left, not creative types like yourself. We're left scratching our heads looking at it like, so he tore his managers, this badass manager who's probably one of the best promos in AEW, tore his shirt off to show that he had at some point written on Jake's back. And then as Jake's walking away at the end of it, it sounds like he's in tears. And so, like, you have taken Jake, you basically just castrated Jake the Snake right there on TV in front of us all, And so, like to me, that it completely. I'm not gonna be able to look at Jake the Snake and Lance Archer again for a while.
I don't know. Listen. Jake can build it back. Jake can build it back. Come on, we're saying like we talked about how Jake started off in AEW and how he's just amazing promos. And like Jake is known for his promos. You don't think Jake cannot bounce back from that?
Also, Jake is just like a really old man, and like so ripping his shirt off, he's like chubby. And it was just like, what the fuck are you doing? It was dumb. It was so bad. It was so bad.
I didn't think it. I was like, it was surprising, and yet I initially was like, okay, how did that get written on his back? But listen, I just came up with that right off the bat when you were talking about it.
Well, AEW needs to come up with some backstory on that, because I'm not going to be able to like look at Jake in the locker room again, just like cutting a cool promo and just think like, yeah, Jake is cool. I'm going to be thinking like, is there something written on his ass cheek right now? And then and Lance Archer's going to come by and fucking shred his pants. Like it's like show his like old man tighty whities, like just ridiculous to rip the shirt off an old man on national television.
Listen,
if it was not his manager, all day. If it wasn't his manager, all day long, let's do it. But like doing it to the guy who's like cutting a promo on your behalf is fucking ridiculous, Dominic. That was wow. I could not believe it.
Jake, here's my thing. Jake's gonna bounce back from it because Jake can cut amazing promos. All right. And secondly, you want the heavy to be Lance. Ultimately, he's
of course.
Yes.
Of course. But
So,
this is the whole idea. The whole idea is that he's like a rabid dog on a leash, and Jake is holding the leash. We just watched the dog turn around and fucking bite his owner right in the dick.
So
and it
the owner can still come back from that.
He's still off the owner.
It's fine. It's fine. I did not think after that. I did not think. Well, they ruined Jake. I thought he's fine. It's gonna be all right, Marcus.
No, dude. I'm not gonna be able to look at him anymore without laughing and thinking of him like getting his shirt torn off, and he's like standing there like looking down at himself with his like man tits out, and it was terrible.
That was fine.
No. Oh.
All right.
No. I love Jake the Snake. You know that I love Jake. So seeing that happen to a wrestler that I respect.
Well, maybe that's where it falls at. I think ultimately you should have more confidence in Jake because he's able to cut a promo and get himself back into the mix.
I'm
sorry. It's not Jake. It's not to get Jake over. It's to get Lance Archer over. That's ultimately your goal.
So throwing around a bunch of 5'5" guys and then tearing the shirt off an old man who's speaking on your behalf. That's there. Everybody's like, "Wow,
the
Lance
dude's
Archer."
Unpredictable. All right, you cannot control Lance Archer right now.
What's he gonna do next? Like kick in the stall while somebody's taking a shit and like rip him off the toilet? Like, boy, what a badass!
Actually, I'd love that.
That actually be bad. You could start making it comedic, the things that he's doing to people, but then he turns into a comedy act.
Could you imagine Jake standing in there, like Jake's like washing his hands, and Lance comes in, but Jake's like cutting a promo as he's washing his hands. Lance is in the background. You see him kicking down the door from like the side view, and he pulls some dude out and throws him against the wall.
That would be great, but then afterwards, Jake is still washing his hands, and then Lance Archer comes behind him and he grabs both his hands and he cranks the heat up all the way, and he's holding Jake's hands under the heat. And Jake is like, "Oh my God, stop!"
Oh shit! I love it. I'm excited for next week already. Oh shit!
All
right.
Oh my God!
Well, here's something that we Akira Shida versus Heather Monroe, short squash match essentially. Thoughts, man? What's your thoughts on this? And ultimately, like, it's another reflection on how the women division is handled right now in AEW. What's your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. Obviously, like, they're pushing Hikira to the moon. She's going on, I think it was second to last or whatever, and it's a designed squash match. So I mean, usually the second to last spot is saved for something like relatively big, like two name talents. So the fact that they're putting her in a position with a squash match, they're clearly trying to establish her as the top female in the company, which she is. She has the title. So I think it's good. By the same token, I've not seen Nyla Rose wrestle in a long time. There's a Penelope Ford. I haven't seen her wrestle. She's a good athlete. So I think that there's a lot of talented women there that are being underutilized right now. And I wish that they could find a way to make it work a little bit better. And yes, I know that they're doing this heels business, and they're trying to establish women there. But the fact is that doing something like that cannot be compared to having a slot on TNT from 8 to 10. So it's I don't think that they've been doing the majority of their women's division a disservice. But I'm happy for Hikaru Shida. She's talented.
I think she should be positioned as one of their top people in the division. You haven't seen any of the Deadly Draw on YouTube with the tag team tournament that's been going on. Are you even aware of that?
No.
You're not even aware of this. See, that's an indicator of what it goes on with the women's division in a lot of ways.
They showed a graphic for it. They did show a graphic for it on AEW. But like, why not make that a featured storyline? Like make that.
That's what a lot of people are saying is like that should be on the Dynamite product itself. Is this tournament?
And so it was a footnote on the episode. Whereas if they had been plugging it the whole time, I might have remembered it just now when he brought it up instead of saying like, oh yeah, they did show a thing. So there's that. But then also if you're plugging it like every couple segments and saying like this is something you've got to see, like it's this massive tournament, it's this cool thing that we're doing, like it might get people to say like I gotta tune into that. I need to check that out. So I think they're doing a real disservice to their women's division now, and they truly need an injection of talent there. So like they've got talent, they're not using it properly. Bring in a big name, and I keep beating the drum for Tessa Blanchard. I say bring her in and inject this women's division with some real energy and competition. And let's watch it flourish because it's got all the potential to.
Well, so with the Deadly Draw, and I know we're running long on time, but with the Deadly Draw, we have. So I've watched both episodes of them, and the personas, characters, everything, is there. It's there, but the matches themselves are not something you want to put on a mainstream television product. They do not transfer over ultimately. And I love because usually in these matches, what we've had is you've had some stars in there. You've had some stars or some established names of some sort in each match, but there's a lot of younger talent in there that is just flat out probably not ready to be put on a mainstream. Some of it's very stilted, a lot of the in-ring action in itself. So I understand why these opening matches are not on your card. AEW's been a little bit limited with the pandemic happening and some of their talent that they've been able to choose from, plus injuries you have factored in, like Britt Baker and Chris Statlander, other people like that. You have all those guys. You have all those factors kind of coming into play. Ultimately, AEW, what we've said before on previous podcasts, not this one but other ones, is that AEW pitched this women's division to the public. Like this was positioned as what was going to be a focus, and it basically has not been a major focus on Dynamite. So you need to do that. So the onus is on them ultimately to have this, and it has not been set up right. There's some reasonings and so on and so forth. Now that we progress forward with this tournament, I would like to see it more so because you have names like Big Swole in there. They introduced Nicole Savoy there. I believe that's her name, but she's as Little Swole, so that's their tag team. And you have like Ivelisse, who's amazing. Diamante tagging with one another. You have characters like Allie and Brandy Rhodes. Their in-ring work is not as good as the others, but they have personas and stuff like that. So now we're getting to this level of maybe a little bit heightened, more level. You should put this on your mainstream product, and you got to do your women's division more of a service. And AEW, they said they were going to do that, and whether it's circumstances or not, they haven't. So
I agree completely.
So, all right, moving on. I think it's main event time, isn't it? Yes.
I believe that
yes.
is, yeah.
Yes, it is. Okay. So Orange Cassidy, Chris Jericho, $7,000 payback match. What'd you think?
I did not like it at all.
At all?
Nope. So again, the build up to this match was like Goldberg and Hogan Nitro '98, right? It's like the up and coming.
Come on, Mark. It's not. It can't be that to that.
Hang on. The up and coming talent coming up against the established talent, and it's like, can he do the impossible? Can he do this thing that we have no expectation of him theoretically being able to do? Which is what it was like with Goldberg, right? Which is why it was such a huge moment, because it's this new blooming talent coming up against a talent that's been so established and always weasels.
It wasn't booked like that. It wasn't booked like that.
It felt that way though, and the whole during their debate, where he's saying like, imagine if I beat you, the guy who puts his hands in his pockets beats you, or just imagine if that happens. It's like all this hype leading up to it, and then what we got, Dominic, was Chris Jericho, who's looking bloated and out of shape, up against a guy who looks like you could knock him over with a feather. And I'm not trashing Chris Jericho. I still think he's one of the most talented wrestlers in the business. He does not look good, and he doesn't move as well as I think he could, because he has too much weight on him right now. I think he needs to go on a diet and slim down, and then his athleticism can really show. And I like Orange Cassidy, but I'm really starting to get to the place where, like with Luchasaurus, where are we going with this? Like, what is Orange Cassidy's ceiling? Because I'm thinking we're getting pretty darn close to it.
See, I don't know. I did not think of anything like that to that extent that you thought. Like, I didn't. Jericho just looked like Jericho to me, and I felt the match itself was good. I thought it was a good match until like the ending spot was a little wonky, and that was it. That was the only thing that really raised my eyebrows at it.
Let me make one more point, and then you can hammer on. I'm not a WWE fan anymore just because of what they've become. I will tell you this: if I was a casual fan and Raw was running at the same time as Dynamite, and you flip to one main event, and you've got Jericho and Orange Cassidy on that channel, you flip to the other main event, and you've got Randy Orton and what's his name, the Bro, Matt Riddle in that main event. Which one are you looking at and saying, I take this main event more seriously? I can tell you which one I am.
Yeah, I mean, like, from a visual standpoint, yeah, but like, if you're looking from other aspects of it, like, if casual fan, you're flipping through the channels, whatever. But if you're a casual fan and you're flipping through the channels for wrestling and you don't know anything like that, it's like, what's going to make you really tune into it anyways? If you're flipping through the channels and you're like choosing between two wrestlers, that hypothetical, I don't think it is really highly, a thing to worry about necessarily. So I think with stuff
about
outside of it,
How about same scenario with an established fan? Which one, like, Dominic, I like AEW more than I like Raw. But if I heard that on the other channel, Randy Orton and Matt Riddle were going at it, and instead I can watch this other thing that's going on, I'm probably going to switch to WWE.
I'm not, because you have that. If you're an established fan, you know what WWE is all about, and you know how they handle their product. Okay, AEW's got that element where it's like, you don't know necessarily what's going to happen. With WWE, you know what you're going to get. And with the ratings and with the demographics that they cultivated, or haven't cultivated. So, WWE's biggest demographic is the over 50 demographic. Over 50. That's the fans they attract. AEW, now each day is different. So Wednesday in comparison to a Monday is different. So more people watch television on a Monday than they do on a Wednesday. But on Wednesday, AEW beats them in the 18 to 34 demographic from Raw. They beat Raw. So it's like, you're looking at that. AEW's built themselves a storyline that's intriguing enough to get fans and an audience into it. Orange Cassidy is a persona that has fans interested. Chris Jericho is an established name. He's a bigger star. Chris Jericho, you put Randy Orton, you put Randy Orton, Matt Riddle, Orange Cassidy, Chris Jericho all together. Biggest star is still Chris Jericho. So you have that mixed up with Orange Cassidy, a star you're trying to build, who's not like anybody else. Body types is one thing. And I agree with you. Like, wrestling's a visual business. So, like, you do ultimately want something like that. But what really matters, ultimately, is the personas and what you're putting across. Chris Jericho is an established character that has a unique personality. Orange Cassidy is this enigma. So you have those two mixing it up with one another. I'm going to tune into that match because it's more interesting from what I know in comparison to WWE, what they've been giving us for the past 15 years, to what AEW is only been around for a year. I'm going to watch AEW, and I'm going to watch that main event. I agree with you that the match itself, I don't think the match was bad. I don't think it was a bad match. I thought the aspect of, like, Orange Cassidy showed fire. You want to see that from that character, and he showed it a lot. Like, immediately, the match started, boom, 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 started firing off right away at him. And, like, say what you will about it, I just feel it was a good match ultimately, except for the ending. And, you know, and that was a sour spot of it. But overall, I thought it was a good match. Like, you want to, and Orange Cassidy got the win. You're establishing a newer talent, and I think Orange Cassidy's in a way better position than Luchasaurus at this moment in time, because there is so much more you can do with him, I feel. But obviously, you want to develop him more in a way. There's going to be time for that, and he's going to have that, and they're giving him that time. So I feel ultimately optimistic about it.
To me, he's beginning to feel very one note. And
I'm not getting
I hope, I'm hopeful that we'll get to see more from him. I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I'm getting impatient, and that's like a down the road thing. I'm sure that his character still has legs for quite a while, where he's going to keep people entertained. I'm just saying, man, like, even a year from now, if he's continuing with his character and what he does and what he's been doing, I won't be able to take him seriously.
Sure.
Do you see
from a year down the road, man?
As somebody like that a year from now, do you see him holding the belt?
Maybe not. No, maybe not the world title, but I could see him holding the TNT title. I could see him in that kind of mix of things where it's like he is up there. He's one of your stars. He's almost, this is like, you know, obviously from a physical standpoint and things like that, he's not to this level, but he could be like to the level of like a Razor Ramon, like where like he's a star and he's a notable star. So
if that, like, case, Dominic, then what's the point in having him go over against a main event talent? All you're doing then is burying a main event talent in favor of a mid card talent.
Marcus, you look at even, I mean, this might not be a good comparison whatsoever, but just immediately come to mind since we're talking about it. Scott Hall put over Chris Jericho. Like, that's something that happened in WCW.
And Chris Jericho did what? At that time, Chris Jericho was the babyface who would lean into the crowd, and you know, they would all pat him on the shoulders and stuff. Then Chris Jericho evolved, and he turned into one of the most entertaining heels in WCW.
Okay.
And he goes on, does the same thing in WWE, and continually evolved. What I'm saying is, I don't think that Orange Cassidy has the body type or the charisma to evolve into anything.
How do you know about the charisma though? Because this is what we're seeing from him, is what he's given us so far. But what we've seen from last week was a fire that we didn't see when he cut that promo at the end of the debate. So it's like that was something new that we didn't get from Orange Cassidy before. So it's like
I'm hopeful, but I can't. I'm having a difficult time picturing it. With Jericho, you can kind of picture it with him, couldn't you? Like he always had this like smarmy, arrogant look about him. He's always good on the mic. He has a great look. So you could almost kind of see it coming when it came to Chris Jericho. I don't see it coming with Orange Cassidy. I hope it does. I want to see him be a huge star and make all the money. But I honestly, I'm thinking we're coming pretty close to a ceiling.
I don't think so. I think I don't think he can make that ruling at this point in time. I just don't think so.
Right. I hope you're right.
Yeah, I think what he's shown us, it's intriguing and it's exciting. I think it's an exciting aspect because, Jericho was exciting back in the late '90s at WCW because he was a fun, entertaining character that like you wanted to see more from, and eventually we got more from him. So I feel like Orange Cassidy is on that trajectory. Like it's funny because we talked about Luchasaurus earlier, and Orange Cassidy was in my head as we were talking about it, and I was like, well, Orange Cassidy's not in that position. He hasn't hit the ceiling. They're moving him forward, so it's like, no, I feel ultimately the ending of the match was not good, like I said, but I feel like the finish, like the outcome, the story that they have set. It's a good position for Orange Cassidy, and I'm looking forward to seeing what more they do with it. And now next week, it's not going to be on Wednesday; it's going to be on Saturday because the NBA stuff. Ratings could get affected. We'll see how it goes. They beat it NXT this week handedly yet again. So it's interesting. Like I would kind of wish they would have pitched more of the Saturday night throwback vibe to it throughout the whole program to kind of get that point across. We didn't get that necessarily, but I don't know. We'll have to tune in Saturday night coming up. So,
and let me also just follow up my final statement by just saying that I have all the respect in the world for Chris Jericho as a performer and what he's done. I still think he's got it. I hate to lean on something as silly and irrelevant as the way that somebody looks in the ring, because like let's face it, Chris Jericho is a legend. And he's established himself throughout his career as being one of the best to ever do it. But like, it is a body business, and like I know that if I were a Chris Jericho fan in let's say 2001, if I was like the biggest Chris Jericho fan in the world, and then I came away from wrestling, and then I'm like, hey, I heard that Chris Jericho's on this new program. I want to tune in and see what's going on with Chris Jericho. I used to love him back in the day. I would tune in, and I'd be pretty shocked to see Chris Jericho looking
would
the way
you
that he looked.
though? Like. Because I mean,
we all age, and like it just is what it is. I think compared to the common human, Chris Jericho still looks pretty tremendous, but like he has got to lose some weight. I think it's gonna benefit him ultimately, not only because he's gonna look better, but because he will be able to perform better.
Yeah, I mean, I get that aspect. Also, too, so it's something interesting to note is when Jericho started working for New Japan. New Japan likes guys that are bulkier and bigger, like to that aspect. So Jericho willingly made himself look like, to that physique that he's kind of at even now, was that for New Japan. So, I mean, not that that's like necessarily a reasoning or excuse because it's a different landscape in America and stuff like that. But it's just, yeah, I mean, people get older. If you're able to compete at that age and everything like that, that's all just an aspect that I kind of factor in. I didn't think it wasn't something that really stood out to me throughout that episode. Like it just was like, okay, this is Jericho wrestling. This is Jericho who I've seen wrestle for a year and a half already. Like at this point in time.
So, to me, like it just visually, and obviously, I'm not going to harp on the visual thing anymore after this. But to me, just visually, it looked like just an old guy fighting a scrawny kid. And that's why it was like, to me, that does not speak of main event.
What was different from that, though, than their first encounter, Mark?
I don't know. I think this time it just really leapt out at me during this, possibly all the hype leading up to it, Dom, where like it was a very hype thing. It's the main event. It's like, it's, Orange Cassidy's potential to really emerge. And then, so it's like, I'm getting all excited about like, hey, this is a big main event. Awesome. And then I see them in the ring together following all those thoughts. And it's like, it just sort of, I felt my balloon deflate.
Yeah, no, I didn't get that. I just got overall I was really excited for this episode. It delivered on some aspects, but it didn't like knock me out of my chair either. ultimately the episode overall. I thought it was a good show, and but like it didn't like set the table for like, oh man, I can't wait for Saturday. Now I feel like Saturday might be a pretty decent show that's gonna, maybe raise our eyebrows. I just kind of have that expectation for it still. That's what's exciting about AEW, I think, overall, is week in and week out. I'm genuinely excited to tune into it each and every night. Like, it feels like an event, like that you want to tune into.
It is, even though I complain about AEW and some of the things that they do, the head scratching things that they'll do, it's the best wrestling on TV right now. No question about it.
Yeah. And it feels like something's going to happen each and every week. And like, I think that's kind of the expectations I make in my head. So like when something maybe doesn't necessarily boom, like pop me or go crazy, then that's, you get a good episode like this week, but it wasn't nothing that really went nuts for me. All right, let's close it out with this. Did us talking about it at all, has that kind of changed your mind from your, like, what was it, 1.5 star that you gave it or something, to did it elevate?
Kind of as we talked about it, like I was reminded, like, oh, that MJF segment, like, oh yeah, that was a cool moment with like the bleach. So like I'll bump it up to 2 stars.
There you go.
Overall, though, some of the stuff that was not great, I mean, it stuck out a little bit more. I don't know, maybe I'm a glasses half empty guy. I really turned heel here at the end of the podcast, but
you're like Eeyore of the show. You want Eeyore here.
I got my balloon deflated, so now I'm actively trying to deflate everyone else's balloon.
That's right. What the hell, man? What the hell? Marcus, how they follow you on Twitter?
Keystone MPD.
Tweeting anything good besides Dallas Cowboy bullshit?
Very little other than Dallas Cowboy bullshit.
Okay. Hey, well, follow him if you want to, guys. But hey, follow me on Twitter at Dominic DeAngelo.
If we're being if we're being honest, I mean, Dominic might be a little bit more interesting than I am. So go and check him out on the Twitter. I'll try to make you laugh once in a while.
I try to put Marcus in the mix too on my Twitter. So yeah, I think you can be a fine follow.
I'll try to make my followers laugh every once in a while with a little chestnut I dig up.
Little things. Follow your replies. I bet you do some pretty decent replies here and there to people.
Most of the time I'm trying, like, I want to make a point against somebody, and then I'm just like, I'm not even gonna bother.
Right. Something you like, look at something and you're like, is it really worth it? I'm about to type something sometimes. It's something that either like pisses me off or something. I'm like, this shit's not worth it. Why am I even investing time into this? And I'm just like, I'll let it go. Whatever. Whatever. So follow WrestleZone on Twitter at WrestleZone.com. Go to WrestleZone.com for all your WrestleZone needs. Follow this podcast. I really appreciate it. We're week in and week out. Marcus, me and you, we're one of the top episode shows on the WrestleZone podcast feed. So it's pretty nice to get that kind of see those statistics and kind of see that people are tuning in, even though we didn't even check emails, which I don't think we got any emails. Google was our big one. That was our big get.
Boy, that was really nice to have Google reach out to us.
Couldn't believe
Dom,
Google.
I think there's a good dynamic with us here, Dom. You make a good baby face. I'll do a heel turn usually once an episode. So it's I think we got a good thing going.
And who knows? We could pull a Steve Austin, Bret Hart here at some point, and then do the double turn at one point. You never know.
We might have to do the double turn, Dom.
Double turn. You know what? We'll do the double turn maybe next week. I don't even know when we're going to record necessarily. We might have something in the hole. We might have something in the hole coming up. We'll see what happens. That's a very fluid situation. So
it has to do with the highlight segment from this past week's Dynamite. So
that's right. So think about that. Chew on that one, folks. So
oh boy, what a teaser to leave them on, Dom.
Gee willikers. All right, Marcus. Hey, you know what? Let's rock and roll, huh? Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Hey, everybody enjoy their weekend. I'm going to go watch an old Jake the Snake match and try to reestablish my fandom.
Don't worry, Marcus. Next week or sometime, Jake will redeem himself and it'll all be forgotten. Then we'll get to see Lance Archer kick down a shitter and party's on again. Get back to it.
All right.
All right.
See you guys next week.